Say, Kate, can I ask you a question?
Well, sure.
You know Trucky Monster that lives upstairs?
Uh-huh.
Well, so he's Trucky Monster, and you're Kate Monster.
Right.
Well, you're both monsters.
Yeah.
Are you two related?
What? Princeton, I'm surprised at you. I find that racist.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just asking.
Well, it's a touchy subject. You see, no, not all monsters are related. What are you trying to say, huh? That we all look the same to you? Huh?
I'm sorry. I guess that was a little bit racist.
I should say so. You should be much more careful when you're talking about the sensitive subject of race.
Well, look who's talking.
What do you mean?
What about that special monster school you told me about?
What about it?
Can someone like me go there?
No, we don't want people like you.
Ah, see? You're a little bit racist.
Well, you're a little bit too.
I guess we're both a little bit racist.
Admitting it's not an easy thing to do.
But I guess it's true.
Between me and you, I think everyone's a little bit racist. Sometimes. Doesn't mean we go around committing hate crimes. Look around and you will find no one's really colorblind. Maybe it's a fact we all should face. Everyone makes judgments based on race.
Not big judgments like who to hire or where to get a newspaper.
No.
Little judgments like thinking that Mexican busboys should learn to speak freaking English.
Right. Everyone's a little bit racist today. So everyone's a little bit racist. Okay. Ethnic jokes might be uncouth, but you laugh because they're based on truth. Don't take them as personal attacks. Everyone enjoys them, so relax.
All right, stop me if you've heard this one. There's a plane going down, and there's only one parachute. There's a rabbi and a
And
priest.
a black guy!
Yeah.
What are you talking about, Kate? Are you telling a black joke?
Well, sure, Gary. Lots of people tell black jokes.
I don't.
Well, of course you don't because you're black. But I think you tell Pollock jokes, right?
Well, sure. Those stupid Polacks.
Now, don't you think that's a little bit racist?
Darn, I guess you're right.
You're a little bit racist.
Well, you're a little bit too. We're all a little bit racist.
I think that I would have to agree with you.
And we're glad you do.
It's sad but true.
Everyone's a little bit racist, all right?
All right.
All right.
Bigotry has never been exclusively white. And if we all could just admit that we are racist a little bit, even though we all know that it's wrong, maybe it would help us get along.
Oh, Christ, do I feel good?
There's a fine, upstanding black man. Jesus Christ.
Gary, Jesus was white.
No, Jesus was black.
No, Jesus was white. I'm pretty sure Jesus was black.
Guys, Jesus was Jewish?
Every Thanksgiving, National Public Radio runs a story like this one. How will you deal with your Uncle Ralph when he says things like,
The big problem in this country is that a white man can never get a break.
now the basic problem is, how can you respect somebody who says things like that? The reporter offers these choices. Leave the room, or respond angrily. Let's try that one. Ralph.
The only problem with this country is that a white man can never get a break.
Uncle Ralph, that statement is both racist and dumb.
We were having a nice conversation until you stepped in. You're not welcome here if you're going to be rude to me.
And then your Aunt Maud says,
Why can't you be normal just one day in the year?
well, if responding angrily won't work, what else can you do? Well, you could stay quiet and feel guilty about letting evil fester. This will make you both unhappy and allow evil to triumph. Or you could provide facts. NPR usually loves that. Let's try that again. Ralph?
You liberals are always trying
Wait,
to...
wait.
No,
First
we
line,
skipped that
Ralph.
line here. That was the wrong cue. Right? Probably did. The problem in this country is that a white man can never get a break.
You think it's tough being white? Don't you know that the wealth of a median black-white family is 12 times as high as that of a median black family?
You liberals always try to hide the plain truth with your made-up fake news.
Well, he gloats, and you choose again from among the first three choices that I gave you, which is departure, silence, and anger. So far, we haven't hit on a winning combination. So, what's left is trying to listen with empathy and respect. What understandings could help us do that? I often hear speakers on the radio or see articles in the print that say our democracy is doomed if we don't find a way to express each other, talk to each other about politics more humanely. Social scientists say that Democrats experience political motive asymmetry. That's the mechanism by which we believe our beliefs are based on motives of love, and theirs are based on hate. Republicans have the same belief, but in reverse. I thought I could learn something by reading How to Talk to a Liberal by Ann Coulter. She advises, don't ever talk to a liberal. If you must, then don't be defensive. Always outrage the enemy and never apologize to, compliment, or show graciousness to a Democrat. She, of course, is not our role model because we have to live up to the Unitarian Universalist principles that dictate our faith. The first principle is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The second is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. The fifth is the use of the democratic process in society at large. Objective research shows that conservatives don't arrive at their beliefs through selfishness, racism, or emotion, at least not wholly. George Lakoff, in the book Moral Politics, asserts that most conservatives believe in the strict father morality. In this model, Dad is the boss. He is the only boss, except for God, who is definitely a white man. Adult males are finished when they grow up. They don't get further guidance. They don't need further guidance. They're supposed to be competent. And that leads to a resentment of illegitimate authority when the tax collector or the zoning commission or the EPA tells them, no, you can't do this and no, you can't do that. The model doesn't tolerate any challenge. It's good versus evil. There's no shades of gray in there. The purpose of the family is to raise self-reliant children. The children should be obedient until they get to be grown up. And in order to make that happen, there's a system of reward and punishment. Punishment is a way to express love in this system. And the punishment always involves retribution, not restitution. It's not enough to give your brother back the toy that you stole. You need to be punished. In this system, morality is strength, and no contamination of morality should occur. Not in books, not in words, not in art. Upholding reward and punishment is extremely important. No lazy or disobedient person should suffer, which of course means that poor people need to stay poor in order to make the system work. No interference with free market capitalism, because that's the reward side. The system requires a free access to the benefits of commercial activity. Finally, the system upholds the moral rank order. God is over humans. Adults are over children. People like us are more important than people who are not like us. And men have a rank over women. Now that last one is subject to negotiation lately, but that's a variant in the strict father morality system. Most people apply their family models to governance. So this means that their politics incorporate those ideas. Strict father morality is also known as authoritarianism. But that doesn't mean that every conservative favors dictatorship. Because I am an older, straight, white man with children, my self-interest says I should love this model. Instead, like you, I buy into a system called the nurturing parent model. This model says that the community is a family, that empathy is the most important part of morality, that poor and injured persons deserve our help, that kids should develop as their own special muse directs. There's not just one model of successful adulthood, and that people should be happy. That's why the Buddha is smiling. In the nurturing parent system, morality consists mostly of harm control and empathy and fairness. In the strict father system, morality leans more towards patriotism, respect for authority, and moral purity. Now, we're ready for the tough question. Did nice people march in Charlottesville for white supremacy? Now, the reason that's tough is because we need to have respect and recognize the divinity inside those people at the same time as they're doing hateful things and saying hateful things. So let's look at what kinds of things they know and believe before we judge them. The first is that psychologist Jonathan Haidt from NYU says the people who tend toward authoritarianism aren't particularly racist until they feel a threat to their social and moral order. Then they get racist, they get homophobic, and they want to kick the deviants out. So we need to figure out whether there's a threat to their system of life. Well, some conservatives I interviewed for this talk told me that these are the most dangerous times ever. The Muslim threat apparently is worse than Hitler. And while I can't agree, I have to recognize that their feelings of fear are their feelings, and they motivate their activities. Technological change and income inequality has really reduced the economic situation of many families that used to be more prosperous. And in the strict father morality system, the fathers feel guilt over not succeeding as providers in the strict father morality system. Middle-aged, working-class white Americans are the only group in the country whose health and mortality rates are worsening. They're dying earlier than they were 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago. The strict father ideas of reward and punishment, remember it's black and white, encourage what's called a zero-sum game. If I win, you lose. If you win, I lose. Republican officials and journalists insist that the presence of immigrants and Muslims in our country are the reasons for the lower class dissatisfaction with their life. A little more difficult for you? Working class Americans really resent those who receive welfare, especially if they're able-bodied and spend freely. Some of us are upper middle class. We're less likely to know those people. So we're less likely to have visceral emotional reactions to the way they live. And admittedly, you only have to spend freely for 5 minutes to create an irritation in that working class American who sees you spending the money. The fact that the repo man comes and takes that thing away in 5 days, they don't know that part. These Americans observe affirmative action and their effect on them. Now, no bureaucratic system ever worked perfectly. And I can tell you that in my experience working with my company, I have found some people stealing from the company, taking stuff that I would have been fired for in a heartbeat. And the human resources people gave me trouble about getting them fired because we needed them to meet our affirmative action quotas. Now, if you're a person who already believes that you're being discriminated against, you would see that as evidence that things were not fair. Just about 3 weeks before the Charlottesville March, there was a story in the New York Times by a woman named Ashley Ford. Ashley Ford was working as a camp counselor in a wilderness camp in Montana. And she was sitting at lunch next to some of the other counselors, and she was looking through her college catalog, figuring out which courses to take and when they were going, what class to sign up for and how it would work for her schedule. One of the other counselors looked at her and said, "What are you doing?" She explains that she's planning for college. And he says, "Oh, I'm not going to college." And she says, "Well, why not?" And he says, "Well, I'm white. We have to pay for college." She was, of course, shocked. And she went and talked to the other white counselors at the camp. Almost all of them felt or believed that black people attend college for free in our society, and that there's an organized system to make that happen. Now, the problem I assign to you is you have to decide whether you hate those who have those beliefs, you hate those who spread those beliefs, or you hate those who make those stories up knowing they're not true. I know which side I fall on. And so, even though those marchers in Charlottesville were doing hateful things, I have to recognize that they may have beliefs and knowledge that's just not so, but that nonetheless motivates them. So what can we do? Do you remember Franklin Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Very Effective People? Habit number 5 was seek first to understand, and then to be understood. And that's probably the central theme of my talk today. There was a large-scale canvassing experiment published in 2016 that found that canvassers could change residents' minds about transgender issues if they had an intense, substantive 10-minute conversation with them. What mattered was creating a relationship with the interviewee that would then cause their heart to make their mind move. So what do I ask from you? I want you to remember that your opponents are human, deserving of respect. But I don't want you to accept that hatred, bigotry, or social selfishness are normal. I'm not asking you for complicit silence. We were talking about that in the car. Some feel that, well, in the presence of conservatives, you gotta be quiet and polite. Well, I think you should be polite. But if you don't tell them that you believe differently, you have taken the power you had by being in relationship with them and lost it. Because if people that you like believe something different, those ideas become more acceptable in your mind. You have an emotional lever. You shouldn't apply it hostilely, like the reading we started with today. So do listen to everyone with empathy and respect. Ask them penetrating questions. Show sympathy whenever you can. Introduce your ideas after you determine how those ideas match the goals of your listener. Reframe the question when you can. If you can show how your ideas lead to the moral results that the conservatives care about, you've got a really powerful argument. If you can explain forever how Medicare for all can contribute to loyalty and patriotism, moral purity, or respect for authority, they have to listen. If you tell them that it will lead to an empathetic fairness in the society, you're barking up the wrong tree. They have their values, and you should be thinking about them when you talk to them. Now, some issues won't yield to rational discussion. Show respect anyway. You feel that a fetus is a person, and I feel that it hasn't developed personhood yet. I'm sorry that we disagree. You stated the difference, you've shown respect, you haven't swung them, but neither have you enraged them to dig their heels in and go even further back. If their motives are reprehensible, then explain why and how you disagree. You think that white men are superior to blacks and women. I think that at least morally and legally, we are all equal. Let's go back to Uncle Ralph again. Uncle Ralph.
The problem remains in this country that a white man can't get a break.
You know, a few white men, Stay here, Uncle Ralph. You got lines. We didn't rehearse. A few white men are making out okay, Uncle Ralph, but tell me what you mean.
Affirmative action, DACA, this country's giving everything to the minorities and the immigrants, and they're giving nothing anymore to regular Americans.
Engage in a few more volleys of sympathetic conversation until you get to a testable assumption. Then address that assumption. You know what, Ralph? I don't think that employers hire black applicants more often than white ones. Let's look that up on the internet after dessert.
After dessert.
Guys gotta have a sense of priorities. Let's look it up after dessert. Would you accept data from the U.S. Department of Labor as proof? How about the Society for Human Resource Management? When you've shown respect, you buy legitimacy that then allows the facts to get through. If you don't go through that empathy and respect, you haven't bought the right to raise the facts. If you've done your work well to this point, Uncle Ralph will want to at least seem reasonable to the rest of the family. Thank you very much. Remember, empathy and respect.